Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a brush fire burns near San Ysidro High School. Crews fighting to keep the flames away from homes. We'll have an update on their progress. New trolley stations near Mission Bay, why they're part of a larger debate over how to add more housing to the area. And retracing the steps of the accused Poway Synagogue shooter. New documents show the actions he took before the attack.
We've seen a big shift in marijuana perception. In 2018, which is the year that we collected this data, only 11% of the juveniles thought that marijuana could have any harmful consequence.
And a local study reveals a spike in drug use among teens. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Thursday, August 1st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A brush fire is threatening structures and has led to mandatory evacuations in the South Bay. San Diego Fire Rescue is calling it the Caliente Fire. It started just before noon near San Ysidro High School. 150 acres have burned. Smoke was seen near apartments in the area, but there are no reports of any damage. California is entering its peak wildfire season, and today near Sacramento, Cal Fire had its newest tools on display. The agency welcomed Governor Gavin Newsom and former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. They got an up-close look at the new fleet of tankers and other equipment that will be used to fight future wildfires.
The good news is we're not going to have a year like we had last year, and this is important. We had 361 requests for air support last year. In 2018 that we could not meet. 361 requests for air support because we didn't have the tools, we didn't have the technology, we didn't have the equipment.
But I'm so excited about it that we're finally upgrading and that our great firefighters, the greatest firefighters, are now getting the equipment that they deserve.
Governor Gavin Newsom has spent the week highlighting fire prevention efforts. Nearly $1 billion is being spent on firefighting in the new state budget. Big development plans are in the works for 2 pieces of land near future trolley stations in San Diego. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has been following their hearings today at City Hall. Andrew.
Well, Ebony, San Diego is right now building an extension of the Blue Line trolley up to University City. The project is costing taxpayers more than $2 billion. And to make that investment worthwhile, the city wants to make sure lots of people can live within walking distance of the new trolley stations. Now, that means higher density housing and taller buildings. The first station plan under consideration is at Balboa Avenue and Interstate 5, which is on the eastern edge of Pacific Beach. There, the city wants to allow higher density housing and mixed-use development. All told, the plan would allow 3,500 homes beyond the current zoning. Further to the south, there's another station at Tecolote Road in the Morena-Linda Vista area. Right now, the land is mostly big-box retail stores. The city wants to zone for 5,600 additional homes and allow buildings up to 100 feet right next to the trolley station. It also wants to add new protected bike lanes, crosswalks, and sidewalks so more people can bike, walk, or take transit to work. Now, Ebony, many people are upset about these plans, saying that new residents in their neighborhoods will make traffic worse and that the taller buildings may block the views from their homes. Despite those concerns, the council unanimously approved both plans today. They did make a few last-minute changes to the Morena Corridor plan regarding how much affordable housing should be included in new developments. It's important to keep in mind these plans are typically built out over decades, so change may come, but it may be far in the future. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Thanks, Andrew. The Mid-City Trolley will run through a part of San Diego where people are trying to protect a natural habitat. But today, they were dealt a setback. The City Council decided not to designate Rose Creek and Pacific Beach as a parkland. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us what it would have meant if the decision had gone the other way.
The water flowing through Rose Creek starts its journey in Scripps Ranch and exits the creek into Mission Bay. It is part of what's left of critical coastal wetlands. Snowy egrets and blue herons are among the birds that make their home here. This approximately half-mile stretch of the creek between Mission Bay Drive and the beginning of Mission Bay Park is a living oasis in the city. It looks beautiful just as it is, so why go to all the trouble, a multi-year effort, to get this designated as parkland?
The city provides no services, no maintenance, no operations for any of it.
That means all that it takes to keep this stretch of the creek in good shape falls to a handful of volunteers.
For this one section, we average 4 tons of trash a year.
Lately, that's included items like this scooter.
It's like expecting the people who live in Mission Beach to be solely responsible for maintaining the beach.
Right now, only about 1,000 people live in this area between the creek and I-5, but that number is anticipated to rise to about 7,500 over the coming years, so Karen Zirk says it's critical the city get involved in the upkeep, and she says that will happen only with this area being designated as parkland.
We're asking for a part-time park ranger so that we can collaborate with the city, and the city can take some of the heavy lifting and we can provide volunteers to help out.
Zirk says there's already money budgeted for habitat restoration, trash removal, and for repairing the bike path. But she says spending money on those projects will be a waste if there's not the money to maintain them. The Pacific Beach Community Plan adopted by the City Council in 1995 calls for Rose Creek to be designated as an open space park. 24 years later, the Friends of Rose Creek say it's long past time the city follow through and save this oasis for generations to come. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A San Diego man sentenced to life under the state's 3 strikes law is free today. Kent Williams was sentenced to 50 years to life in 2003 for burglary and car theft in North Park. Today, he and District Attorney Summer Steffen talked about his case and why it was reviewed.
Relationships have been restored. I hadn't seen my daughter in 26 years.
After we completed the review, we believed Mr. Williams met the letter and the spirit of the law, and that he was deserving of this relief.
The district attorney says Williams would not have received the same sentence under today's guidelines. He is believed to be the first person freed under the new law. The number of young people in juvenile detention testing positive for illicit drugs is at a 19-year high. This is according to the latest data from the San Diego County Substance Abuse Monitoring Program, or SAM. Here to discuss more of the results is Dr. Burke. She's the head of research at Synagogue. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So can we start off by finding out, how did you collect this data?
So this used to be part of a large national study. When that funding ended, we were the only site that's been able to continue to talk to both juveniles and adults who were arrested and booked into our juvenile hall or our local jails. As part of that, they would have to have been on the street within the past 48 hours because we do get a urine sample. We go in there a few months out of the year, and it's all voluntary, confidential, anonymous. We're trying to get some objective data about drug use trends and other risk factors over time.
And when it comes to testing positive, because this was not only self-reported, but also urine samples, correct?
Yes.
So when it comes to testing positive for illicit drugs, any explanation of why there might be that spike from 2016 to 2018?
So the 5 drugs that we test for are marijuana, cocaine, crack, opiates, which could be prescription or heroin, methamphetamine, and PCP. Over the past several years, there's been a real shift in the juvenile detention system and the juvenile system overall to try to keep youth out of detention. So our sample size numbers have gone down over time. So I think it reflects in part that those youth who are most likely to be in the system may have a higher level of needs, but it could also reflect some other real change that we're seeing over time too. It could be a combination. It's not totally, we can't say one way or the other, but I think that change in our focus of the system could definitely affect the data here.
And then also, your research found that about 57% of participants reported abusing prescription drugs, with tranquilizers being the number one choice of that. How is this different from previous years?
It's up. Since 2014, it was 35%, so we've seen a steady increase. Those youth who say that they've abused of prescription drugs, which means they took a prescription drug that was not prescribed for them, many of them are saying it's easy to get. They're either getting being given it by another individual, or about 1 in 3 are saying they're taking it from somebody. It's either a family member or a stranger. So I think it's important for people to take advantages to get rid of those prescription drugs that they're not using. Many of the youth that we talk to who have abused prescription drugs are also saying they're using street drugs. So it's not just one or the other.
So one thing that surprised me was the age reported from the participants about when they first experimented or tried illicit drugs. Could you talk about those findings?
Yeah. We know that 96% of these youth had tried at least one drug. 68% had tried at least one of the gateway drugs, which is alcohol, marijuana, or tobacco. Most of those are trying alcohol or marijuana first. The average age was under 13, around 12, for both those who had tried marijuana and alcohol first. So I think that's an important message, whether your child is in the system or not, but just to maybe have some of those conversations earlier than a parent might think that they need to.
And this study also tracked risk factors. Which were the most common?
Well, so we use these data. We think it's important to be able to understand the needs of the youth in the system, as well as what factors could be preventative ones. Truancy. About 4 in 5 of those youth we talk to have been truant from school. Many of them have parents who have justice system contact or who you've abused drugs to. So I think when you're looking at dealing with, it's important to maybe think about family units and look at individuals who have those underlying needs, and how do we address family units who may be at greater risk to change a trajectory for a youth before it may be too late and there really is a serious addiction.
So how does this data help?
It's helpful because it quantifies information that people who maybe work with this population, whether it's in treatment, prevention, law enforcement, we're able to put numbers to what they may think but don't have the numbers for. We know that there's at-risk populations. We know that there's populations who aren't in the system, but we may not know all the factors, so we can get ahead of trends before they actually become a bigger issue.
Dr. Cynthia Burke, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, breaking down the federal budget. The U.S. Senate approves a 2-year spending deal. What's in, what's out, and what will it cost? Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Hundreds of pages of search warrants relating to a shooting at a Poway synagogue are giving us a better idea of what happened before the gunfire. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has been reading through the documents.
We've been combing through more than 300 pages of recently unsealed search warrants. They show that the suspected shooter purchased an AR-15 at a local gun store, even though he was only 19. In California, that's too young to buy a shotgun or a rifle under a new state law. Now, that law does say, though, you can purchase a shotgun or a rifle if you're under 21 if you have a hunting license. These search warrants show investigators found a hunting certificate inside the suspect's home, and KPBS confirmed today that the suspect did use a hunting license to purchase the rifle. The owner of San Diego Guns, where the shooter bought the rifle, says the suspect used a hunting license to buy the Smith & Wesson rifle. That would explain how the suspect was able to get the gun without being 21. Federal prosecutors say that gun was picked up just a day before the shooting. California has a mandatory 10-day waiting period for all firearm purchases, meaning the suspect may have bought the gun around April 16th. The search warrant also shows how the alleged shooter was able to get other items used in the attack by simply shopping on Amazon. The online retailer shipped this military-style helmet, vest, and duffel bag to the suspect's home in the weeks leading up to the shooting. Investigators say by using Amazon, the suspect did not have to go to a store where he might have been caught on surveillance cameras or seen by witnesses. There are also indications that the suspect wanted to live stream his attack. A GoPro, which was also bought on Amazon, was found attached to a helmet inside the suspect's car after the shooting. In addition, these warrants found text messages that referenced a mass shooting in New Zealand that also targeted places of worship. In those messages, the suspect was upset that he was unable to watch a live stream of the New Zealand attack. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Republicans and Democrats are looking ahead to 2020. Today in Charlotte, the Republican Party unveiled its logo for its convention. Organizers also put out a call for volunteers. They say they'll need 50,000 people to help put on the event, which is scheduled for August of next year. Meanwhile, Democrats just wrapped up another 2-night round of debates. Many of the candidates are making climate change a big part of their message. CNN reporter Bill Weir tells us how each would address the issue.
Every leading Democrat for president agrees.
It's a simple question. What is the biggest threat to who is the geopolitical threat to the United States?
To save life as we know it.
Senator Warren.
Climate change.
Yeah, Senator Booker.
Nuclear proliferation and climate change.
America must join her allies to fight World War C.
Well, first of all, I don't even call it climate change. It's a climate crisis.
All of them say the U.S. should rejoin the Paris Accords. But few have detailed exactly how they would stop humanity from cooking itself on fossil fuel. Less than half the field has put out a comprehensive climate plan, and most of those are thin. But the first came from Beto O'Rourke.
We are announcing the most ambitious climate plan in the history of the United States.
To run against Ted Cruz for Senate last year, he took individual donations from oil and gas executives. But he swore off their money this time and now vows to spend $5 trillion to get America off of oil and gas. He favors essentially outlawing carbon pollution by 2050, while others like Kirsten Gillibrand prefer a carbon tax. She'd have polluters pay a stiff $52 for each ton burned and would use the money on a national energy transition.
We want to use innovation, entrepreneurialism, and new technologies for wind, solar, geothermal, hydropower, biofuels.
But Pete Buttigieg and John Delaney would pass carbon tax money directly to you.
The greatest challenges we face in the future will be over technology, intellectual property, clean energy, a warming planet.
Joe Biden caught grief from climate hawks for floating a middle ground approach. And while his $1.7 trillion plan is vague, he has Obama's green legacy to run on. Elizabeth Warren is in for $2 trillion and wants to start the fight by forcing corporations to report exactly how much damage they are doing to the planet, and then use that data to keep lobbyists and lawmakers honest.
It's 25 years of corruption in Washington that we're paying for now.
Cory Booker is a rare fan of nuclear energy, and like fellow Senator Kamala Harris, often emphasizes environmental justice for those poor communities already being hit the hardest. But the most detailed plan by far comes from Jay Inslee.
Other candidates might put it on their to-do list, but that just does not cut it.
The Washington governor would spend $9 trillion, create a GI Bill for displaced miners and frackers, and force every new car to be 100% zero emission by 2030. To him, everything on the president's desk, from the economy to health to national defense, is a climate issue.
We can't, tell China to solve the problem if we refuse to. We need to inspire them to act in the rest of the world and not give them an excuse for inaction.
Bernie Sanders has yet to release a detailed climate plan, surprising given his decades-old passion for the topic. He is a leading proponent of the Green New Deal, also a plan big on ambition, short on specifics.
Green New Deal! Green New Deal!
But the young activists behind this call to arms are short on patience. The Sunrise Movement wants America off oil and gas 15 years faster than Beto, Inslee, and the rest. For this generation, it's great that the grown-ups on this stage are finally talking about their planet. But if the threat is as bad as they say, the ideas and urgency are just too little too late. Bill Weir, CNN New York.
This week, KPBS reported on rising sea levels and the idea of managed retreat for local beach communities. You can find that and other stories from the KPBS Climate Change Desk at kpbs.org. Warm, sunny weather will continue through the weekend. Regina Miller has tonight's forecast.
Well, as we take a look here at our satellite and radar across the Southwest, Southern California, things are pretty quiet. You have to go to some interior locations, the Four Corners, where we see some activity firing up there. But as we take a look at our futurecast, starting off at 8 p.m., going through the overnight hours, pretty quiet. We will have some of those low clouds right at the immediate coast. But as we take a look into the metro areas, partly cloudy night tonight, 66 degrees. And our forecast for the overnight hours for Ramona, you're at 59 degrees. We've got mainly clear skies tonight into Borrego Springs. Also, Mount Laguna has clear skies in the forecast as well. Taking a look at your Friday, it's seasonable across Southern California. Again, all the action staying in the Four Corners with the showers and thunderstorms, some of that monsoonal moisture there. But our high temperature into Oceanside, you're at 80 degrees. We're going to see a high temperature of 111 in Borrego Springs, 83 in Mount Laguna. Laguna. Looking towards the weekend, it starts to heat up in some interior locations across Southern California, but at the coast, our temperature on Friday, we're at 80 degrees. We're at 81 on Saturday, partly sunny and nice. By Monday, you will start to notice an increase in some of the humidity. As we head into the inland areas, we've got a partly sunny, warm day for Friday at 91. Saturday, 92 degrees, and partly sunny skies on Sunday at 92 as well. A little bit cooler by next Tuesday. And the desert locations, we're at 111 with a mostly sunny sky on Friday, partly sunny on Saturday, so maybe just a few more clouds around. Warm with sunshine on Sunday and 111. And we have a high temperature of 83 degrees on Friday and Saturday in the mountain areas. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
Shakespeare and Elvis collide downtown. And it's a big weekend for live music in La Jolla and Carlsbad. KPBS arts editor Nina Guerin has this preview.
There are lots of changes in store for this year's Summerfest, La Jolla Music Society's esteemed chamber music festival. First, there's the event's new director, Inan Barnatan. For his first year, he's examining transformation. Concerts will explore themes of making new music from old music and interacting with other genres. Then, of course, this year's Summerfest finally has a permanent home, the Conrad in La Jolla. The month of concerts will feature a mix of chamber music, plus jazz nights and dance workshops. There's another music festival this weekend, except this one happens mostly outdoors and brings together an eclectic mix of musicians. The Carlsbad Music Festival is billed as adventurous music by the beach because you'll see accomplished classical composers sharing the stage with rock bands, country acts, world musicians, and string quartets. Founded by Matt McBain, the lineup features his band Build, as well as other acts like the Joshua White Trio, Trouble in the Wind, Danny Bell and the Tarantist, and the Parker Meridian. And new for 2019, all concerts, indoor and outdoor, are free, but donations are suggested and welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis is returning to the building. The Horton Grand Theater, to be exact. San Diego Musical Theater opens All Shook Up, a romantic comedy loosely based on Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, mashed up with the songs of Elvis Presley. Elvis doesn't actually show up in this musical, which is about a romance between small-town Natalie and the motorcycle-riding, hip-shaking Chad. But you will hear plenty of Elvis songs like Heartbreak Hotel and Jailhouse Rock, set to high-energy choreography. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
At 100 years old, a World War II veteran from San Diego is not slowing down anytime soon. He's trying to meet the governors of all 50 states. KTXL reporter Doug Johnson has his story.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for your service. This is 100-year-old Sidney Walton, one of the few former soldiers left from the Greatest Generation.
So, Dad, you remember why you joined the Army?
To fight Hitler.
He's part of a population that some have estimated are dying by the hundreds every day.
Thank you for your service, sir. Appreciate it.
Walton served in the U.S. Army in India during the war, but as Walton's son Paul Walton helps explain, when he was 21 years old before he deployed, he had an opportunity to meet Civil War veterans in New York City, one he never took advantage of.
Oh, yeah. That's still one. I saw him meeting Civil War veterans.
And you regret that to this day?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the reasons he wants to meet as many people as he can now.
Dad now can give everyone a chance to meet a World War II veteran before it's too late. Right, Dad?
Yeah.
Are you up for that?
I'm up for it.
All 50 states?
All 50 states.
My dad was in World War II also.
Oh.
Last month, Walton met President Trump at a 75th D-Day anniversary ceremony in Normandy, France. Now he's going to every state and meeting all 50 governors.
We've met 22 so far. Gavin Newsom will be our 23rd, so then we'll have 27 more to go.
And after the governors, he'll meet mayors, fire chiefs, business leaders, and anyone who wants to say hi. Thanks for your service, Sidney.
Thank you.
His favorite part about traveling around?
I see what a beautiful country this is. I love it.
Sidney Walton is scheduled to meet Governor Gavin Newsom tomorrow. Now here's a recap of tonight's top stories. Mandatory evacuation orders are in effect due to a brush fire in the South Bay. San Diego Fire Rescue is calling it the Caliente Fire. It started just before noon near San Ysidro High School. 150 acres have burned. Smoke was seen near apartments in the area, but there are no reports of any damage. Today near Sacramento, Governor Gavin Newsom toured some of the state's new firefighting aircraft. He was joined by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Cal Fire firefighters are being trained on the new aircraft and will soon use them across the state. The San Diego City Council is considering how to use 2 pieces of land near future trolley stations. Both stations are along the Blue Line extension near Mission Bay and University City. The city is considering whether to rezone the area for more high-density housing. Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. A surprise for law students on Morning Edition. How a mistake allowed them to see questions from the bar exam before taking the test. And on Roundtable, how the melting of the Arctic sea ice this summer could accelerate the effects of climate change. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.